Sometimes hear me talk about my zone of genius. Yeah, have you guys heard that? Sometimes I throw that term out there, like zone of genius, zone of genius. I didn't make that shit up, actually. It's a it's a pretty common term. I think it was popularized by Gay Hendricks, the author of one of the books I recommend to you guys, The Big Leap. I'm not sure if he coined it and then people started talking about it afterwards, but there's this concept known as the several zones. There is the zone of incompetence, and this is stuff you suck at. This is stuff that you suck at this so much nobody would even pay you for it. There's your zone of competence, which is like competent at, and you can get paid for that. But usually this $25 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour, you're just fine at doing this stuff. This might be something like, if you are like cleaning houses, or if you are doing some sort of like basically anything where you're getting paid hourly, right? You're kind of trading time for money on a kind of lower end. And you're doing stuff that really anybody could do. Like for instance, like I'm actually at coffee shops when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. And I can make really good coffee. I can make really good espresso drinks, and I'm very competent at them. I'm pretty good, and I can get paid for that. So if I was to say, hey, I'm pretty good at this thing, I can get paid at that for this. Then there's your zone of excellence. And this is where it gets really tricky because this is shit that you're really good at. You fucking honed in your skills over the years. People acknowledge you for this. You get paid pretty good money for your zone of excellence, right? There's like, you could be a lawyer and you're getting paid $500 an hour because they're a fantastic lawyer. You could be a fantastic doctor, paid really, really good money, and you're really, really good at what you do. And so it feels really comfy and safe in this area to be making really good money doing something you are really, really good at. And because it's this safe area, very few people venture into the next zone, which is your zone of genius. Now, here's the thing about the zone of excellence. You might be good at this shit, but when you go home at night, you're tired. Because when you do it, it sucks the life out of you, and you're just basically not loving it because it's not your zone of genius. Your zone of genius, this is the thing that God, you're really good at. And God, you're so good at it, you would do it for free. Your zone of genius is like where you shine. When you feel like when you're doing this, you just feel like you are rocking and rolling, right? You could do it all day and then you're just like, boom, the energy soars when you're done because you're just, gosh, you're really, really in it. So, very few people transition from the zone of excellence to the zone of genius because it could be scary to think, oh, am I supposed to get paid for this? Or maybe you don't even know what your zone of genius is. So today I'm really just planting the seed of what is your zone of genius. So I want you to write down on a piece of paper, zone of genius. And there's no pressure to know what your zone of genius is because there's a potential right now. You haven't thought of this concept. And so you might be like, I don't know. I don't know. So your zone of genius, and you can just write a couple notes, is shit that lights you up, shit you would do for free. Your zone of genius is stuff that when you're done, you have more energy than when you started. You enjoy it. And this is something worth contemplating. So if you feel like you do know what your zone of genius is, even if you don't know how to monetize it, even if you don't like, even if it's just super murky, if you have some ideas of what your zone of genius might be, write it down. What are you fucking good at? What fucking lights you up? What doesn't feel like work to you? So if you have ideas, I want you to throw those down. But right now is also okay to just become curious, because for some of you listening right now, there could be this thing where you have now responded in your mind and in your body. I don't know, Alleah. I don't know what my zone of genius is. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that good at anything is a possible response. You guys are, some of you have heard my stories of how, maybe, what was it? Like 15 years ago, I used to say all the time, I said for years, I want a business and I don't know what. I want a business and I don't know what. And the full sentiment was, I really want a business. I don't know what, and I'm just not clever enough to think of an idea. I used to chronically say, what am I? This was 15 years ago. So what I really said is, I want a business. I'm not that clever. I'm not going to think of the next fucking Twitter. That's what I used to say all the time. I'd be like, what am I? I'm supposed to fucking go to a coffee shop and think of the next Twitter? That's not going to happen. So I was chronically saying that I didn't know what. And you guys know at this point, we cannot believe we don't know while receiving the answer. We can't believe we don't know and know at the same time. They can't happen. It's two opposing. You can't have the energy of knowing while you have the energy of not knowing. So it might feel too hard though to all of a sudden have the energy of knowing. So we need a bridge sentiment. We need a sentiment to lead into. We need an emotion to lean into to bridge not knowing and knowing. And the strongest bridge I know is the bridge of curiosity. So that's really my goal with you guys right now, is to just start bringing this idea, if you're not totally sure what your zone of genius is to start becoming curious about it. Start becoming curious. I'm curious. What is my zone of genius? What's my zone of genius? What lights me up? What lights me up? What am I better at than 99% of other people? What am I really, really good at? So let's just lean into curiosity around your zone of genius. For me, my zone of genius is talking about this shit. My zone of genius is talking about law of attraction, talking about manifestation, articulating these words, teaching you guys. And how I know this is when I get off a call like this, boom, 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 boom. I don't feel better. There's no time in my day that I feel better than when I get off a community call with you guys, when I get out of a workshop with you guys, when I get out of rewriting some shit from you guys, when I finally get into Telegram and look at all your stuff in there, I get energy from it, right? So I want you guys to start thinking about your zone of genius and what it possibly could be. And I don't care if it takes a of curiosity around this to start fleshing this out. Now, high level, once we have an idea of what our zone of genius is, there's two things we start doing: more of that and less of everything else. More of that and less than everything else. You immediately start, as soon as you can, outsourcing everything that is outside of your zone of genius, and you start stacking your time more and more with your zone of genius. And that is how you love your fucking days. That is how you get a lot of energy. That is how you magnetize people. That is how you have energy to do stuff. That is how you fall in love with doing some other things. Because there's this kind of process in the beginning of doing things. We kind of do everything, right? In the very beginning, when I started my wine business, whatever that was, almost 15 years ago, you would see me literally stacking my 2011 Prius with like 30 cases of wine, and I would drive it around and like deliver wine to restaurants. That wasn't my zone of genius. My zone of genius in my wine business was actually tasting wine. I was really, really good at being able to find wines and be able to evaluate them in such a way that I built a portfolio that was better than most other people's portfolios. And so now don't get me wrong, I didn't do the wine business. The first 5 years, I did not do manifestation very well in the wine business. So I spent a lot of time doing shit that was not my zone of genius. And that's why I was really, really miserable. But as I started doing all the energy work that I teach you guys about, rewriting my shit and future casting, It turned into my job being really tasting a lot of wines. It was insane. Every single day, UPS and FedEx would show up at my house with like cases of wine that people from all around the world were sending me to taste. And then my job was to pick out what tasted delicious. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other things because I was doing this for a client, and there was a lot of spreadsheet work, but I actually love spreadsheets too. And so I'm dabbling with that. So we want to identify what is your zone of genius and start minimizing other stuff. Now, this could be in the form of hiring a virtual assistant for $10 an hour, which is a great rate in the Philippines, for $10 an hour and for 5 hours a week. This could be as soon as you have $50 a week to spend, I say get a virtual assistant and you start thinking, what can I possibly give them? What can I give them? What can I outsource? Because in order to do this process, you actually end up getting really good at identifying things other people could do and explaining to them how to do it.